The rain hammered the black umbrellas like judgment from above, turning the cemetery into a slick, mournful mirror of the sky. Ethan knelt in the mud beside his father's casket, the weight of the earth already pressing down, and pulled the ring from his pocket with trembling fingers. 3 years of love distilled into a single, desperate gleam. "Marry me, Alex?" he whispered, voice cracking over the pastor's final amen. "Before this grave swallows the last good thing I have left." Alex's eyes, those storm-gray eyes that had anchored Ethan through every Midwest blizzard, widened in the downpour. The mourners, farmers in ill-fitting suits, distant cousins chewing on unlit cigars, froze mid-shuffle, their whispers slicing through the patter like shrapnel. Ethan held his breath, the ring hovering between them like a fragile bridge over the abyss, knowing this moment could either bind them forever or shatter everything under the relentless American rain. Ethan had always known funerals in Willow Creek, Iowa, were less about the dead and more about the living's unraveling secrets. His father, Harlan Whitaker, had been the town's unofficial mayor, a burly ex-Marine who fixed tractors at dawn and quoted Reagan at dusk, his calloused hands forever stained with engine grease and quiet regrets. Harlan's heart had given out mid-harvest, felled by a combine's roar like some biblical curse on the amber waves. Now, under the slate-gray December sky, Ethan felt the ground shift not just from the rain but from the lie he'd been living. Loving a man in a place where love like theirs was whispered behind hay bales, never shouted from church steeples. Alex Rivera stood there, water dripping from his dark curls, his leather jacket a defiant armor against the chill. He'd driven in from Chicago that morning, 5 hours of flatlands blurring into one long exhale, just to hold Ethan's hand through the vigil. Alex was the city boy who'd crashed into Ethan's world 3 summers ago. Tall, tattooed, with a laugh that echoed like thunder over Lake Michigan. They'd met at a county fair, Ethan nursing a Bud Light after a bad shift at the feed mill, Alex hawking artisanal hot sauces from a pop-up stall. One shared glance over a spinning Ferris wheel, and the world had tilted. Now, with Harlan's casket gleaming like polished mahogany, Alex dropped to one knee beside Ethan, pulling him into a fierce, unapologetic kiss that tasted of salt and storm. The gasps rippled outward like stones in a pond. Aunt Mabel clutched her pearls, her lips pursing into a line thinner than barbed wire. Cousin Dale muttered something about "damn liberals ruinin' a good send-off." But Ethan didn't care. Not anymore. Harlan had known, had walked in on them once, in the barn loft, his face a thundercloud that never broke. "This town's got rules, son," he'd growled. But he'd never disowned Ethan. Not outright. And in the will, Ethan hoped, there'd be forgiveness etched in legalese, a legacy to build their life on. "Jesus, Ethan," Alex murmured against his lips, pulling back just enough to slide the ring onto Ethan's finger. A simple band etched with a tiny oak leaf, symbolizing roots they'd plant together, far from Willow Creek's prying eyes. "You pick now to turn me into a puddle?" His voice was husky, laced with that Chicago edge, all vowels stretched like taffy. But his eyes shone, fierce and tender, as he rose and helped Ethan to his feet, their hands locked like lifelines. The pastor cleared his throat, folding his Bible with the delicacy of handling dynamite. "Well, folks, let's remember Harlan as the man who built bridges, not burned them." A smattering of awkward claps followed, drowned by the rain. Ethan leaned into Alex, inhaling the familiar scent of sandalwood and motor oil, remnants of Alex's side gig, restoring vintage Harleys. This was their declaration, raw and real, in the heartland where rainbows were just weather phenomena, not pride flags. As the crowd dispersed toward the fellowship hall for Jell-O salads and ham sliders, Ethan lingered by the grave, Alex's arm a steady anchor around his waist. "He would have hated this," Ethan said, voice low, kicking at a clod of mud. "Me, on my knees in the dirt like some kind of fool." Alex squeezed his side, gentle but firm. "Or maybe he'd have seen it for what it is, guts. The kind he taught you." Alex had never met Harlan, not properly. The old man had kept his distance, citing business in Omaha whenever Alex visited. But Alex had pieced together the stories. Harlan's Vietnam scars, his wife's early death from cancer, leaving Ethan to grow up splitting wood and swallowing silences. Besides, Alex added with a wry grin, if the will's as loaded as you say, we can buy a place up in Door County. Waves, not wheat fields. Ethan managed a half-smile, the ring heavy on his finger like a promise carved in stone. Harlan's estate was no empire, just the family farm, a modest trust from his Marine pension, and the old Whitaker hardware store downtown, its shelves sagging under bolts and nostalgia. But it was enough. Enough for a wedding in the apple orchards, a down payment on dreams deferred. Read it tomorrow, Ethan said, turning toward the gravel path. Lawyer's office at 10. Then we blow this town, fiancé. The word hung sweet between them, chased by the crunch of boots on wet stone. But as they walked, Ethan caught Uncle Roy's stare from the tent flap, sharp, appraising, like he knew something the rain hadn't washed clean. That night, the motel room off I-80 smelled of mothballs and instant coffee, the neon vacancy sign bleeding red through threadbare curtains. Ethan lay awake, Alex's snores a soft rumble beside him, the ring catching moonlight like a secret signal. Sleep came in fits, haunted by Harlan's voice. Blood's thicker than water, boy. Don't let it drown you. By dawn, the sky had cleared to a brittle blue, and Ethan rose to face the will, steeling himself for inheritance or indictment. The lawyer's office was a squat brick building squeezed between the grain elevator and a shuttered video rental shop, Willow Creek's nod to progress. Mr. Hargrove, a wiry man with spectacles perched like a hawk's beak, ushered them into a room that reeked of lemon pledge and old paper. Ethan, Alex, condolences, he said, his drawl syrup slow. Harlan was particular about this. Sealed until, well, yesterday. Alex squeezed Ethan's knee under the table, his thumb tracing circles. A silent mantra. We're in this. The envelope crinkled as Hargrove slid it across the oak slab, Harlan's scrawl bold on the flap. For my son, if he remembers who he is. Ethan's pulse thrummed like a bass line in his ears. He broke the seal, unfolding pages crisp as autumn leaves. The farm, his. The store, his. The trust, 50,000, seeded from years of scrimping. Relief flooded him, warm as cider, and he grinned at Alex. It's ours. All of it. But Hargrove's cough cut the air. There's a codicil, Ethan. Contingent on discretion. His eyes flicked to Alex, then away, like touching a hot stove. Ethan scanned the lines, the words blurring. In the event of union outside traditional bounds, assets revert to family trust, administered by Roy Whitaker, with stipulation for therapeutic intervention. The room tilted. Therapeutic. Alex echoed, his voice a low growl. What the hell does that mean? Hargrove shifted, polishing his glasses on a tie dotted with coffee stains. Harlan's words, not mine. He wanted you protected from yourself, I reckon. Roy's your uncle. He'll hold the reins till you reconsider. Ethan's laugh was hollow, echoing off the paneled walls. Roy, the brother Harlan had bailed out of debt twice. The one who'd sneered at Ethan's city friends. Betrayal coiled in his gut, cold as the grave dirt under his nails. He knew, Ethan whispered, crumpling the page. All this time, and this is his goodbye? Alex's hand tightened, knuckles white. We fight it. Wills can be contested, coercion, undue influence. Harlan was sick. Maybe he wasn't thinking straight. But Ethan saw the trap closing. The farm mortgage to Roy's casino habits. The trust funneled to family values causes. Their future, rewritten in ink that smelled of regret. As they left the office, the Iowa wind whipping Main Street's flags into frenzy, Ethan felt the ring burn like a brand. Love had been their rebellion. Now it was their ransom. Back at the farm that evening, the house loomed like a sentinel. White clapboard peeling, porch swing creaking in the breeze. Alex paced the kitchen, phone glued to his ear, barking questions at a Des Moines attorney contact. Yeah, precedent, Obergefell versus Hodges, but for estates? Dig deep. Ethan watched from the window, Harlan's old recliner swallowing him whole. The will's pages scattered like fallen leaves on the linoleum. Roy arrived unannounced, his pickup rumbling up the drive like an invasion. broad as a barn door, with a gut straining his flannel shirt. He filled the doorway, chewing on a toothpick like it owed him money. "Nephew," he boomed, ignoring Alex entirely. "Heard about your little display. Harlan spin in his grave." Ethan rose, spine straight as the cornstalks outside. "The will's clear, uncle. It's mine, ours." Roy's laugh was a bark, devoid of mirth. "Clear as mud, boy. Harlan told me everything. That trust ain't for play-actin' house with your friend here." He jerked his chin at Alex, who paused mid-sentence, eyes narrowing to slits. "Sign it over quiet like or we go to court. Town'll eat you alive. Folks already talkin'." The air thickened, charged like the moments before a twister. Alex stepped forward, voice steady as rebar. "Threats don't scare us, Roy. Harlan wrote what he wrote. We're reading between the lines." Roy's gaze lingered on Alex, a flicker of something recognition, crossing his ruddy face before he spat the toothpick into the sink. "You think you're clever, city boy? Harlan had his reasons. Sleep on it." He lumbered out, leaving the echo of his boots like thunder retreating. Ethan sank into the chair, head in hands. "What reasons? Dad never said a word about this." Alex knelt before him, mirroring yesterday's proposal, his hands cupping Ethan's face. "Hey, we're not signing shit. This farm is your blood, your sweat. We'll lawyer up, expose whatever games Roy's playing." His lips brushed Ethan's forehead, soft as forgiveness. "I love you. That's the only will that matters." In the quiet that followed, with fireflies winking through the screen door, Ethan clung to that truth. But doubt wormed in, insidious as rust. What if Harlan's silence hid more than prejudice? What if the will was just the first crack in a foundation built on lies? The days blurred into a haze of phone calls and coffee stains, the farm's ledger books piling up like accusations on the harvest table. Ethan threw himself into the work, mending fences that sagged like old regrets, tilling soil that yielded grudgingly under winter's threat. It was ritual, this labor, a way to outrun the questions gnawing at him. Why the codicil? Why Roy, of all people, as gatekeeper? Harlan had trusted his brother once, bailing him out of that '98 flood when the river claimed half the acreage. But whispers lingered, Roy's gambling, the bar tabs, the wife who'd left for a salesman in Dubuque. Alex, bless his relentless heart, became the storm in Ethan's calm. He drove back to Chicago twice that week, returning with armfuls of takeout tie and printouts from the Windy City's queer legal aid. "Precedent after precedent," he'd say, spreading documents across the quilt his mother had stitched before the cancer took her. "Wills like this? They're relics, Ethan. Courts eat 'em for breakfast." But beneath the bravado, Alex's eyes held shadows. Nights spent staring at the ceiling, murmuring about escape routes, about selling vintage bikes to fund an appeal. One crisp Tuesday, as frost rimed the pumpkin vines, they drove to Des Moines for a consult. The skyline rose like a promise, all glass and grit, a far cry from Willow Creek's squat silos. The lawyer, a sharp-dressed woman named Lena Vasquez with a rainbow pin on her lapel and a Rolodex thicker than the Bible, leaned back in her leather chair. "Coercive as hell," she declared, tapping the codicil with a manicured nail. "Harlan's illness, undue influence from Roy, maybe? We'll need medicals, witnesses, but it'll cost. 10 grand upfront. Easy." Ethan's stomach nodded. The trust was frozen pending probate. The store barely broke even after Black Friday stragglers. "We scrape it," Alex said immediately, his hand finding Ethan's under the table. "My shop's got equity. Cousins in Milwaukee, they owe me." Lena eyed them, her smile warm but weighted. "You two are solid. Reminds me of my dad's. Fought tooth and nail for their vineyard in Napa after Pop's stroke. Love like that, it wins." She slid over a retainer form, and Ethan signed, the pen heavy as the ring on his finger. Driving back, with corn stubble whipping past like golden spears, Ethan felt a spark. Hope, fragile but fierce. That night, they made love on the living room rug, slow and deliberate, the fire crackling like applause. No rush, no desperation. Just skin on skin, breaths mingling in the lamplight. Afterward, tangled in blankets that smelled of wood smoke in them, Alex traced the tattoos on Ethan's shoulder. Anchors from his Navy days, inked during a rebellious shore leave. "Tell me about your dad," Alex whispered. "The real stuff, not the hero myth." Ethan hesitated, the words sticking like burrs. "He was steady. Took me fishing at Okoboji, taught me to shoot a .22. But after Mom, he walled up. Sundays were church, then silence. I came out senior year, left a note on the fridge. He burned it, I think. Never spoke of it." His voice cracked, and Alex pulled him closer. A harbor in the dark. "Sounds like he loved you fierce, in his broken way. That codicil? Fear, not hate." Alex's words were a bomb, but Ethan wondered. Had Harlan glimpsed their joy in stolen moments, envied it even? The betrayal struck on a Thursday, unheralded as a prairie fire. Ethan was inventorying the hardware store. Nuts, bolts, cans of WD-40 stacked like soldiers, when the back room phone rang, shrill as a banshee. It was Hargrove, voice quavering. "Ethan, lad, there's addendum. Sealed. Dated last month. Roy just dropped it off. Says it's pivotal. Pivotal." The word lodged in Ethan's throat like a fishbone. He drove home white-knuckled, the addendum burning a hole in his glove box. Alex was in the barn, wrench in hand, coaxing life into Harlan's old Ford. "What?" he asked, wiping grease on his jeans. But Ethan thrust the paper at him, words blurring through unshed tears. "In light of new evidence regarding Alexander Rivera, known associate of the deceased's brother, Roy Whitaker, assets shall transfer forthwith to Roy, with Ethan Whitaker receiving nominal stipend, contingent on cessation of association." Associate. The word detonated, shards flying. Ethan stared at Alex, the man who'd held him through Harlan's deathbed vigil, or so he'd said, who'd proposed countervows under the motel fluorescents. "You knew Roy? From when?" Alex's face drained of color, wrench clattering to the concrete floor. "Ethan, listen. It's not what. How long?" Ethan's voice rose, cracking the barn's rafters. "How long have you been playing both sides? Dad's sick, Roy's scheming, and you. What? The go-between? Spying for scraps?" Alex reached for him, but Ethan recoiled, the ring a sudden noose. "It was years ago. I fixed bikes for Roy, Chicago drop-offs. Nothing shady. Harlan found out through him. Begged me to stay away from you. Said you'd get hurt in this town." His words tumbled, desperate. "I lied because I loved you, from the first damn hot sauce sample. But when he got sick, Roy cornered me last spring. Said if I didn't watch, make sure you straightened up. He'd tank the farm himself." Betrayal bloomed, hot and visceral, twisting Ethan's love into something barbed. "You watched, while I poured my soul out. Proposed to you with my heart bleeding." He tore the ring off, hurling it into the hay. It glinted mockingly before vanishing. "Get out. Before I do something we'll both regret." Alex stood frozen, rain starting to patter on the tin roof, mirroring the storm in his eyes. "Ethan, please. I ended it, told Roy to fuck off months ago. This addendum? It's revenge. Because I chose you." But the words rang hollow, echoes of a trust fractured. He backed toward the door, shoulders slumped. "I'll fight from Chicago. Call Lena. Don't let him win." The door slammed, engine roaring to life, taillights fading into the dusk like dying embers. Ethan sank against the workbench, sobs racking him. Grief for his father layered over this fresh wound, the farm's ghosts closing in. Alone in the gloaming, he whispered to the empty air, "What did you do to us, Dad?" Word spread through Willow Creek faster than gossip at a potluck. By morning, the store's phone jangled with concerned calls. Aunt Mabel offering prayers, Dale snickering about, "That spick boy's tricks." Roy showed up at noon, all false sympathy, bearing a casserole that smelled of tuna and triumph. "Told you, nephew. Blood don't lie." Ethan met his gaze, steel in his spine. "Neither does the truth. We'll see you in court." But as Roy drove off, Ethan felt the noose tighten. Without Alex's fire, the fight felt futile, a lone wolf against the pack. He spent the afternoon in the attic, sifting Harlan's boxes. Yellowed letters from Vietnam, Mom's pressed wildflowers, a hidden journal bound in cracked leather. The entries spanned decades, Harlan's script tightening with age. Regrets over lost chances, fears for Ethan's path. And then, scrawled in fading ink, Roy's debts. Rivera knows too much. Must protect the boy at all costs. Protect. The word mocked him. Late into the night, phone dark beside his pillow, Ethan wept. Not just for love lost, but for the father he'd half-invented. A man whose love was a fortress with moats of mistrust. Winter clamped down on Willow Creek like a vice, snowdrifts burying the fence rows, turning the world monochrome. Ethan moved through days on autopilot. Dawn chores feeding the few remaining cattle. Afternoons tallying store receipts that dwindled like hope. The ring lay in a drawer, a talisman turned traitor, and Alex's texts. Sporadic at first, then a flood. When unread, deleted in batches like digital exorcisms. I'm coming back. Don't sign anything. Lena says we have a shot. Harlan's journal proves coercion. But each ping was a knife twist, reopening the gash of betrayal. Lena called mid-December, her voice crackling over the landline like static from a distant star. We've got leverage, Ethan. That journal? Gold. Harlan wrote about Roy's blackmail, loans from shady Chicago outfits, Rivera as the middleman for repayments via bike parts. Your dad was trying to shield you, not punish. She paused, papers rustling. But we need Alex. His testimony seals it. He's the witness. Ethan gripped the receiver, knuckles aching. He's compromised. How do I trust? Love's messy, Han. My dad's fought through worse. Pop thought Dad was the mailman till the DNA test. Lena's laugh was wry, a lifeline. Call him, or I will. He didn't. Not that night, nor the next, when icicles daggered from the eaves like frozen accusations. Instead, Ethan drove to the cemetery under a hunter's moon. The grave mounded fresh, headstone stark. Harlan Whitaker, 1952 to 2025. Beloved father. The epitaph mocked him. Beloved how? He demanded of the wind, voice swallowed by flurries. You built walls, Dad. Left me to climb 'em alone. A figure emerged from the shadows. Alex, bundled in that leather jacket, breath clouding like smoke signals. Saw your truck from the road. His voice was raw, edged with cold and something deeper. Regret, perhaps, or resolve. Ethan stiffened, but Alex held up gloved hands. Empty. Not here to beg. Just talk. For the fight. They walked the perimeter, boots crunching virgin snow, silence thick as the drifts. Finally, Ethan broke it. Why'd you lie? From the start. Alex stopped by a weathered obelisk, exhaling white plumes. Harlan called me last year, after Roy spilled about the fair. Stay away, he said. Roy's circling like a vulture. He'll use you to gut the farm. I thought it was homophobia, pure. But it was protection. Roy owed bookies big, wanted Harlan's land as collateral. I agreed to feed him scraps, keep him off your back. Harmless stuff. Store hours, crop yields. Till I fell for you. His eyes met Ethan's, storm gray pleading. Then it was poison. I cut ties, but Roy twisted it in the will. Ethan's chest tightened, fury and ache colliding. You could have told me. We could have faced it together. Would you have believed? Fresh off the farm. Me the outsider. Alex's laugh was bitter, frost-kissed. I was scared, Ethan. Scared of losing the one real thing in this shitstorm life. The admission hung, fragile as hoarfrost. Ethan wanted to shove him, kiss him, anything to shatter the stasis. Instead, he nodded toward the grave. He knew you were good for me. That's why the codicil testing us, maybe. Or himself. They stood there till numbness set in, shoulders brushing accidental intimate. Help me fight, Ethan said finally, voice small against the night. But no more secrets. Alex's nod was solemn, a vow renewed. No more. Christmas came cloaked in irony. Town square lit with twinkling LEDs, carols piping from lampposts like saccharine lies. Ethan hosted a sparse dinner. Turkey from the co-op, pie from Mabel, laced with Bible verses on a card. Roy declined, citing family matters. But his shadow loomed via certified mail. A probate motion to freeze assets, citing moral turpitude. Lena fired back, subpoenaing bank records that painted Roy's finances in crimson. Overdrafts, wire transfers to Chicago chop shops. Alex stayed, bunking in the guest room. A chaste divide, walls thin as paper. They talked late, rebuilding bridges over coffee mugs. Alex's Chicago youth, orphaned young, hustling bikes to survive. Ethan's dreams deferred, of opening a sustainable farm co-op, queer-friendly, drawing city folk for you-pick berries and barn dances. Laughter crept in, tentative, thawing the ice. But climax brewed in the new year, a blizzard howling like banshees on January 15th. Court date loomed in Des Moines, and Roy escalated. Tips to the local rag, headlines screaming, Whitaker heir in scandal. Farm legacy at risk? Willow Creek buzzed. Boycotts at the store. Graffiti on the barn, Sodom soil. Ethan fortified. Alex at his side. But doubt festered. What if the town turned fully? What if Harlan's ghost sided with blood over heart? The night before trial, power flickered out. Winds battering the house like judgment. Candles guttered in the kitchen, casting shadows that danced like accusations. Alex found the journal again, open to a passage Ethan had missed. If Roy wins, it's on me. But Ethan, love him true, Alex. Rewrite my mistakes. Harlan's scrawl trembled, dated days before the end. Ethan's breath hitched. He approved, after everything. Alex knelt, candlelight gilding his face. He saw us that weekend you visited Chicago. Called me after. Treat him right or I'll haunt you. A ghost of a smile. I think he was rooting in his gruff way. Tears traced Ethan's cheeks. Cathartic. He pulled Alex close, foreheads touching, the divide crumbling. I miss you, he whispered. All of you. Their kiss was ignition. Slow burn to inferno. Hands rediscovering paths long mapped. No desperation, just reclamation. Lips mapping apologies, bodies affirming truths the will couldn't touch. In the candle's hush, they wove back together, love a defiant flame against the storm. Dawn broke brittle, the drive to court a white-knuckle gauntlet. Plows yet to clear the interstate. Des Moines courthouse loomed, Doric columns iced like wedding cake. Inside, the gallery hummed. Roy's allies in starched collars. Lena's rainbow coalition in wool scarves. Roy took the stand first, bluster intact. Harlan confided in me, worried sick over Ethan's choices. That Rivera fella? Bad influence tied to my past mistakes. Lena pounced, ledger in hand. Mistakes like defrauding your brother for gambling debts? Or using Mr. Rivera as an unwitting courier? Gasps rippled. Roy's face purpled. Alex testified next, voice steady as he laid bare the web. Drop-offs, threats, Harlan's pleas. I loved Ethan enough to lie, for protection, not profit. The judge, a silver-haired woman with a no-nonsense bun, leaned forward, eyes sharp. Ethan's turn came last, journal in trembling hands. My father wasn't perfect, scars from wars abroad and home. But he wanted this farm to thrive, not rot in revenge. He met Roy's glare. Blood's thick, uncle, but it don't excuse poison. The gavel fell at dusk, snow swirling outside like confetti. Codicil invalidated, the judge intoned. Addendum stricken, undue influence clear. Estate to Ethan Whitaker, unencumbered. Cheers erupted, muffled. Roy stormed out, curses trailing like exhaust. In the hallway, Ethan collapsed into Alex, sobs of relief mingling with laughter. We did it, he gasped. For him, for us. But victory soured swift. Texts from the store. Break-in overnight, safe rifled, ledgers torched. Roy's parting shot, desperate and dirty. The vandalism hit like aftershock. The store's back door splintered. glass crunching underfoot like brittle bones. Ethan surveyed the chaos by flashlight, files ash, cash drawer emptied. A spray-painted slur curling across the counter like venom. Alex cursed in Spanish, low and lethal, dialing the sheriff while Ethan salvaged what he could. A singed photo of Harlan behind the register, grin wide as the Mississippi. Sheriff Tate arrived post-midnight, paunch straining his uniform, notepad flipped open. "Looks personal," he drawled, eyeing the graffiti without flinching. Willow Creek's underbelly wasn't new to him. Roy's truck spotted nearby, but prints'll tell. Ethan nodded, numb. Alex paced, fists clenched, the protective fire in him flaring anew. By morning, the town split like fault lines. Mabel brought coffee and condolences, her prayers for clarity, laced with side-eye at Alex. Dale, surprisingly, stopped by with plywood and a hammer. "Ain't right what kin does. Harlan want it fixed." Whispers of support trickled in, farm wives slipping 20s for repairs. A queer kid from the diner leaving a note, "You're not alone." But Roy's shadow deepened. Warrants flew. His farmhouse yielded ledgers mirroring the journal's horrors. Debts to Chicago syndicates, Ethan's inheritance eyed as bailout. Confrontation came unbidden. Roy cornered at the VFW hall, nursing a Boilermaker amid vets swapping war stories. Ethan and Alex burst in, Lena's injunction clutched like a shield. "You son of a bitch," Ethan snarled, slamming the paper down. Store was the last straw. "Cops are coming, fraud, arson, the works." Roy's eyes, bloodshot and wild, flicked between them. "All for the family, boy. Harlan owed me after Nam he promised. That land's mine by right." His voice cracked, booze slurred, revealing the man beneath. A brother betrayed by fate, clinging to scraps. Alex stepped forward, voice level. "Harlan chose Ethan. Chose love over your mess. Sign the confession, Roy. Make it right." The hall hushed, dominoes clacking forgotten. Roy stared into his glass, shoulders heaving. "He knew. About you too. Said it was modern times. But me, I couldn't." A sob escaped, raw as winter wind. "Forgive an old fool?" Ethan's anger fractured, pity seeping in, humanity's messy grace. "Sign and we'll talk. No jail if you make amends." Roy's nod was weary, pen scratching surrender on the bar napkin that became affidavit. Spring unfurled tentative, snowmelt swelling the creeks, greening the fields like renewal's brushstroke. The farm breathed again. Co-op plans sketched on napkins, solar panels ordered for the barn roof. Alex sold a prized 72 Norton, the funds seeding their first harvest, organic heirlooms, marketed to Chicago's farm-to-table set. Wedding whispers grew. June, under the oaks, vows exchanged with Harlan's spirit in the breeze. One evening, as fireflies scripted the dusk, Ethan found a letter in the attic, Harlan's last, unsent, tucked in the journal's spine. "Son, if you're reading this, I failed the words in life, but know your heart's truer than my fears. Love who you love, build what I couldn't. Proud always." Tears blurred the ink, but Ethan carried it down, reading aloud to Alex on the porch swing. "Human, Dad," Alex said, arm around him. "All of us." The ceremony was small, fierce. Rainbow banners fluttering from the silo, friends from afar mingling with tentative locals. Ethan in linen, Alex in leather vest. Rings exchanged anew, simple gold bands etched with rewrite. Vows poured out, promises of storms weathered, secrets shared, futures farmed together. As the sun dipped, casting gold over the assembly, Ethan pulled Alex aside, to the barn loft where it began. "Never knowing," he murmured, echoing the will's cruel twist, "that it'd lead here." Alex grinned, that thunder laugh rumbling. Best rewrite ever. In Willow Creek, change crept slow as dawn. Graffiti faded, boycotts ebbed, a pride flag fluttering discreet from the store awning. Roy, paroled to community service, showed up one harvest, hands dirty in the soil, mumbling amends over cider. Not forgiveness full, but a start humanity's patient arc. Ethan and Alex built, Co-op thriving, kids from the city learning to plant. Love's quiet revolution in every furrow. Harlan's grave, visited often, bloomed with wildflowers. Roots deep, reaching for light. In the heartland's vast embrace, they proved it. Love rewrites, not erases. Binds, not breaks. And in America's patchwork soul, that was victory enough.